Alright students, welcome back. This is Homer's Iliad 2019, Lecture 23, Books 21 and 22, and as I said before lecture began, this will be the climax of Homer's Iliad. Alright, Book 21, and unfortunately I did skip Book 20. I would like to say one thing about Book 20. In Book 20 you do see Achilleus take the battlefield. In Book 20 you do see him kill a young man named Polydoros, whose name ironically means many gifts. Polydoros is the youngest son of Priam and Hektor. And sadly, it says in Book 20 that he was actually so young that Priam didn't want him to go out onto the battlefield. And unfortunately, he's running around because he's very fast. Achilleus sees him, zooms in on him, throws his spear through the back of poor Polydoros, and the spear's head comes out from his belly, his navel, and actually it eviscerates him. His guts come out, his intestines come out, and he actually very sadly dies trying to put them back inside of his belly. But the reason I tell you that story, not just to tell you another grisly death in Homer, alongside all the heads getting cut off and the tongues getting chopped out and people's livers exploding, but to tell you that Polydoros, the epic tradition, is a character you'll see again. In the Iliad, we will see Polydoros, and he will have been stabbed so many times that he turned into a bush. I will probably turn to Ovid and show you Polydoros at another point, and then again in Dante in the Divine Comedy. He gets mentioned. In particular, his manner of death at becoming a bush in the Iliad will be mentioned in Circle 7, Subcircle 2 amongst the suicides, those people who themselves are reduced to their vegetative state into trees. And so I just mentioned Polydoros because these epic writers, they compete with each other. Virgil competes with Homer, later Dante will compete with Virgil, and so they establish a connection between each other, often by not only touching on similar themes, but even using similar and the same characters. And so I just wanted to mention Polydoros very quick. So, Book 21, meet Lykaon and the Theomachy. We have another big time kill here. Well, first and foremost, what happens is the Aristeia of Achilleus is what happens. And his Aristeia will be far grander than any Aristeia we have seen. We've seen two Crosses, Agamemnon's, we've seen Hector's, we've seen Patroclus's. And Patroclus's, he killed no fewer than 27 men, several waves of 9 men at a time. Achilleus will fill a river with bodies. He is just as terrifying, he is just as deadly as a whirlwind, as for us, as a forest fire, you might say. He is a force of nature, and in fact, he is described like a force of nature, like fire, all-consuming, but also like a force of nature, very much inhuman, not showing pity. He burns everything in front of him, and that is exactly what he is doing here. And, well, let's see some other inhuman things he does. One of the first things he does in Book 21 is he goes to capture in a river 12 young Trojan youths. Now, something you have not seen in the Iliad is human sacrifice, because something not even done in 12th century Greece, and especially not later on in 8th century Greece when this is being sung for the first time and then later transcribed, is human sacrifice. You've seen sacrifice of, say, oxen. You've seen hecatombs. We've heard about. So a hecatomb is when 100 animals, though by the time of Agamemnon it might have been reduced to as few as 8, you slice their throats and then you cook them. And the idea is that the smell goes up to the gods, because the gods are not made of matter, and smell to the ancients was not made of matter, because can you see a smell? Can you touch a smell? No, but you can smell a smell. It's a different way of doing things. So the gods get the smell, but the humans get to actually eat the meat. Well, if you sacrifice a human, what do you do with the body? Well, exactly. Creepy. Cannibalize? That's considered a very sort of primitive, not civilized thing to do. You don't eat humans as a human in civilization. You especially don't eat humans that are like you and speak the same language as you. We don't even like the idea, I would say, of eating dogs and cats in America now, much less a person. So the fact that Achilleus catches 12 people and is going to sacrifice them, he's not going to eat them, just to let you know. But the fact that he will kill them in some odd sacrifice, it's sort of like a witchy ritual. Funny that we should be around Halloween right now. But it's just not something that anybody would look at and think, that's a good idea, or that's a normal thing to do, or I'm happy to be on his side. I suppose you don't want to be on the other side, though. But I just want you to know how bizarre that is. All right. The next person he catches is somebody who he's like a nightmare to. His name is Lykaon. And Lykaon had actually just gotten back to the war 11 days ago. Well, you say, why was he gone? Well, the reason is he was caught by Achilleus. When Achilleus was still fighting earlier on in the war, Achilleus then sold him for a ransom because he was rich. And then he's just been called back from he's just been ransomed back by his family from the slavers who bought him from Achilleus and returned to Troy. And now, the first thing he sees when he comes back on the battlefield is the guy that sold him into slavery in the first place, Achilleus. And so it's like a terrible dream. And so what he tries to do when he sees Achilleus is he tries to run. But as you know, Achilleus is called Achilleus of the swift feet for good reason. Achilleus tracks him down. He catches him. Lykaon begs for mercy, but just like Agamemnon earlier in the story, when he was feeling the pressure of his poor decisions, Achilleus is now in no mood to take prisoners. Yes? Yes, go ahead. And so, when Lykaon is caught by Achilleus, he begs for mercy, but Achilleus, as I told you, is like a force of nature. He feels no pity, he gives no quarter, he grants no mercy. And so, Achilleus ignores his plea, kills Lykaon, boasts over his body, dumps it into the river Scamandros. Just for those of you answering questions here, remember Scamandros is what mortals call the river near Troy. Xanthos, shining, brilliant, golden, is what the immortals call it. And remember, that is also the name of Achilleus' horse. It is the name of multiple things, just sort of like there can be multiple people named Ted. All right. Good. All right. After Lykaon is dumped into the river, and he is one of many bodies that has now been dumped into the river. This angers the river god Xanthos. The river god has the same name as the river. They are essentially one and the same. Well, he gets angry and he inspires a son of a different river. I believe it's the Satnios, named Asteropaios, to go fight against Achilleus. And something interesting about Asteropaios. We all know that Achilleus is nearly invulnerable. Invulnerable by some accounts, not by Homer's account. You'll see that that's true in just one slide. Asteropaios, though he should be scared, does have one thing going for him. Does have one little tricky thing he can do that most warriors cannot do. He, rather than having a shield on his left arm, can wield two spears at once, which is a deadly combination because if he can wield them at once, throw them at once, then he can throw spears that come from two different directions that makes it so that if you only have one shield and he throws at two different parts of your body, that where do you defend? Well, you'll defend one spear, but the other spear will hit you, is the idea. And so he does have a gnarly little trick that makes him an effective little warrior. Now, he does throw both of his spears at Achilleus at once, and he does graze the arm of Achilleus. So he does produce blood. He does injure Achilleus. It's a tremendous accomplishment. It's something that actually you never see happen to Aias the Greater. Aias the Greater never gets injured. Achilleus does. And so in that respect, I suppose you could say that Aias the Greater gets his cousin. Flawless victory as opposed to a flawed one. Though we'll see how both of them end soon enough next week. Next week, I'm actually going to explain to you what happens to a lot of these characters who survive the Iliad. After the Iliad, none of them survive their lives, you might say. In any case, after Achilleus is hit by this spear, he gives a little disquisition. He kills Asteropaios, not that difficult, and then starts to, and I often quote this with the students, but I'm not going to quote it today mostly because we have to move fast, where he says, oh, you're the son of a river god? Well, I'm the son of a goddess, but on my other side, my father's side, Peleus is the son of Iacchos, and Iacchos is the son of Zeus. And Zeus, all rivers fear, including the great river Ocean. And so, I am essentially the scariest being on the planet, is what he's trying to say, because he traces his line back to Zeus, says that Zeus is stronger than all other gods, so if somebody is if somebody is the son of a river god, therefore they should fear Achilleus because he is the son of a god that all rivers fear. which I don't know why he's saying all of that, but I think the idea seems to be that he is going more and more out of his mind. He is less and less identifying as a human. Recall, he's associated with fire. He's mercilessly killing people. He's stopping up an entire river. He refuses to eat. He refuses to sleep. He refuses to feel human compassion. He is very much out of his... he is not the same person he was at the beginning of the Iliad, you might say. And his humanity and his connection to it is very thin at this moment. And as a very powerful and dangerous human, that makes him a very dangerous creature, as we can see. All right, and that was the point that I was making just a moment ago. Asteropaios is, of course, himself the son of a river god, and so when Achilleus kills him, Scamandros / Xanthos is even more upset, because this is the son of a river god. He is, of course, a river god himself. And, of course, Asteropaios' body will now be helping to dam up the river, and the idea of Scamandros Xanthos sending Asteropaios against Achilleus was that maybe he would stop that process. Process not stopped. All right, so as Achilleus continues to do what he's doing to the Xanthos-Scamandros river, and it starts to complain that it's choking on dead bodies, it actually directly addresses Achilleus. The river god talks to Achilleus and says, "Could you stop this, please?" Achilleus actually agrees and then continues to do it. And so since he continues to do it, apparently Xanthos / Scamandros knows something about authority, and he decides to wield the stick. Creates a giant wave. A giant wave, like a tidal wave, that's supposed to go kill Achilleus and also clear itself of its bodies. Now, this is a really interesting moment, because Achilleus is running away from this wave, and definitely cannot defeat the wave, because how do you defeat a wave? Especially if you're a surfer, you know that you never win against a wave. He actually imagines something in his head. We get some insight into his thought process, and he thinks, "Oh man, I've done it now. I actually wish that I had died to some noble Trojan like Hector, because the worst way for an Achaean or a Trojan to die is at sea. Because if you die at sea, your body gets lost. And if your body's lost, you can never have a funeral. And if you never have a funeral, you can never become a hero. Heroes had specific cults where people would go. We still do similar things on, say, like Labor Day, where we put flags or tokens on people's grave sites to remember them and their great deeds. Well, that was a way to maintain your kleos beyond death for the Achaeans and the Trojans. And if you did not have a grave site and your body were not buried there, then you could not have those mementos. Your kleos could not be maintained. And so Achilleus thinks, I actually messed up so bad that I would have preferred to die to Hector, who I have a burning hate for because he killed my best friend right now. Which is interesting. In any case, because he can't defeat the water, because he can't defeat a god, he prays to the gods, "Oh, Hera, I wish somebody would help me out right now." And lucky for Achilleus, he is very beloved by the gods and also very much necessary for destroying Troy, which is what Hera wants done more than anything at this particular moment. As I said, he wishes that he had died in battle with Hector, not been drowned by a river, and he hears Poseidon reassure him. And Hera then assigns Hephaestus to fight the river with fire. Hephaestus is, like described by Mr. Moundshroud in the Halloween tree, an old forgotten god of fire. He was originally a god of fire, and in fact his name in the Roman mythology is Vulcan, where we get the word volcano from, which shoots fire into the air. And the idea behind Mount Etna, where he had his forge, is that it was a volcano. So when, the volcano was erupting, that meant that who was working? Hephaestus. Very good. It's sort of like the old idea that, and this might even be an American, but probably a German folktale idea that when there's thunder, that's the gods bowling in the mountains. Bowling in the mountains. Very interesting idea. In any case, let's see the Theomachy. The Theomachy. You're like, what's that word mean? Theomachy. Well, theos means God in Greek. And that's where we get the study of God called theology. You can study that at college if you want to. Machy means battle or war. So this is the war of the gods, the battle of the gods. Students are often very interested in a war against the gods. And, well, this battle in particular, you might say, reflects the battle of the men down on the battlefield. That finally, with Achilleus released in the battlefield, the gods are re-released. Zeus says, you can go back down and you can help out and you can fight each other directly. So the first gods to fight are Xanthos and Hephaestus. Hephaestus actually, so Hephaestus is an Olympian class god, whereas Scamandrus slash Xanthos is just a regional god, much weaker. In any case, what Hephaestus does is he lights trees on fire, throws them into Xanthos, and starts to evaporate Xanthos away, which is wonderful. He's so powerful that even though he has the wrong Pokemon type to attack Scamandros, he does defeat him. That's sort of a funny joke. Water defeats fire in old Pokemon. Any of y'all know about that? All of you know about that? Yeah, in any case. Yes, so Hephaestus starts to literally light Xanthos on fire and evaporate him away. He then calls out to Hera. He says, I give up. I'm not going to fight anymore. Just have your son stop burning me alive. And so Xanthos, boom, lost, defeated. Now, we've known about the Greeks having two war gods for some time now. We know about the goddess of war strategy, wielding the terrible aegis, named Athena, daughter of Zeus, parthogenetically. That means through virgin birth. And like a character we'll see in the Western tradition next year. And also a god of battle and of storming strong walls, described as blood-stained, the violent war god, Ares. Well, Ares and his younger sister, Athena, finally fight. And when they fight, Athena actually knocks him over 9 acres. She knocks him to the ground. She knocks him out cold, one-hit KO. And then, and this is sort of interesting, because even though in the Iliad, Hephaestus is married to a grace named Taurus, we will hear that he was once married to Aphrodite. That will be the case in the Odyssey. That will also be the case in the Aeneid. We will also hear that he was once cheated on when he was married to Aphrodite. Aphrodite cheats on whoever her husband is quite a bit. That's how Aeneas came around, by the way. And she's sort of like a female Zeus in that respect. But she cheated on Hephaestus with his very, very handsome brother and her brother named Ares, precisely because he was handsome. And actually Hephaestus will say that during a story that's being told by Demodocus. Demodocus? Yes. Or the singer of the Phaeacians in the Odyssey that we will soon hear. We'll actually hear that in the next few weeks. And it's pretty sad because Hephaestus is the one who says, the only reason you cheated on me is because my brother was handsome and because I'm so ugly. And that always just makes me sad because it seems like something that's possibly something very true is in that story, and also very sad because of its truth. In any case, Ares gets one for all the rest of us, you might say. He finally gets his. Athena knocks him down. He is defeated by a girl. He is defeated by a girl goddess. His soon-to-be lover, Aphrodite, tries to drag him off the battlefield. Tries to help him out. Well, no. Athena's got something for her, too. And decides to hit her. Actually hits her right on the bosom. Students always laugh at that. They're like, ha, 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 ha. And she gets knocked back as well. Okay, well, Athena's doing pretty well today. All right. There are more gods, though. Poseidon now needs to get involved. And actually, he sort of gets involved in mental warfare, first and foremost. He doesn't just physically fight against Apollo. He is older than Apollo. He is the uncle to Apollo. And he shared an interesting moment with Apollo. We all know, because this story has come up a couple times at this point, that Poseidon and Apollo were enslaved by Laomedon, the father of Priam, for a span of a year. And during that year, Poseidon was made to create the wall around Troy. That's why he gets so upset about the Achaeans making the wall around their camp, because he made a better wall that was sacrificed to. So that's the sort of thing a god cares about. And during that time, Apollo was actually a shepherd of the flocks of Troy. This seems to be a time of great industry for the Trojans right before Priam's reign as king. In any case, Poseidon says, why would you fight for the Trojans, Apollo, if it is the case that one of the Trojan kings, the one that came just before this one, Priam, actually enslaved you through trickery? Doesn't make any sense for you to fight on their side. And apparently that gets to Apollo a little bit, because he says, well, I'm not going to fight this fight against my father's brother, my uncle, mortals are not worth it. And in fact, he repeats that great maxim that Glaucus gave us in Book 6 about mortals being like leaves. Just like the leaves on a tree, so are the generations of men. He says, men come to be and they die. What's the point of we immortal gods fighting for them? And so he actually shoots off. Well, while he shoots off, you might recall that Apollo, who is the god of the sun and many other things, has a sister. The sister, you would imagine, is his twin sister Artemis. She often represents or is represented by the moon. The power of the sun, the reflection of the moon. The gold of the sun, the silver of the moon. We'll see those symbols many, many times during the Inferno next year. In any case, his sister, and this strikes me as hitting close to home if any of you, say, have a sister, sees him run from Poseidon. And she becomes so upset with him. She starts screaming at him. She says, "Oh, Apollo, the amount of times that we have sat at dinner and you have claimed that you could defeat Poseidon in battle, and now you refuse even to fight him at all? No, absolutely not. Never claim again that you could defeat him." And so she's yelling at her brother. She's upset with him about what she perceives as sort of cowardice, even though obviously none of them can die, so how can they be cowards? How can they be heroes? In any case, Hera hears her doing this, and very, very insultingly grabs her hands, takes her bow out of her hand. Artemis, like Apollo, is a goddess of using of archery. She's a goddess of the hunt, whereas Apollo is more traditional archery. In any case, her bow is taken from her. Her hands are held in one hand, and then Hera boxes her ears. To box someone's ears is when you basically hit them on top of the ear and create a small vacuum, so that it just really stings and could potentially, if somebody does it very hard, make your eardrum explode through really crazy physics. In any case, it's like something you do to kids as an adult. It's a very insulting thing for Hera to do to Artemis. In any case, Artemis then runs off crying. And she's a goddess of all things. She's a goddess of all things. In any case, let's see. Ah, yes. Now a very strange interaction. A god named Argefontes. You're like, who's Argefontes? I say, well, in Greek that means Argus killer. And you say, well, who killed Argus and who is Argus? And I say, well, the god who killed Argus was named Hermes, the messenger god, though not the messenger god in the Iliad. As you know, Iris generally takes messages for the gods in the Iliad. We'll see a lot more of Hermes in the Odyssey. In any case, he was once given the task by Zeus to go break out one of his lovers who had been turned into a cow from captivity by Hera. Hera had set a giant next to this cow that never fell asleep because he had eyes all over his body, and his name was Argus. Argus the Watchful. Well, Hermes has a special wand that can raise the dead or kill people, and also wake people up and put them to sleep. So Hermes went up behind this many-eyed monster, tapped him on the head with his wand, fell asleep, slit his throat, took the cow. Now he's called Argus Slayer, Argefontes, for all time. In any case, he's pretty gnarly dude, this Hermes. You probably, when you learn about mythology, learn he's like a messenger and Zeus really likes him. He's very, very good at getting things he is not supposed to. In fact, if you ever read the Homeric hymn to Hermes, the very first day of his existence, he stole from his brother Apollo many cattle, and then lied about it, and then got off. And so he's incredible. And obviously he can kill people or monsters in the night. That said, he gets to fight against probably the weakest god represented here, Leto. Leto is called Latona in the Roman tradition, and she is the mother, by Zeus, of Artemis and Apollo. Well, Hermes shows that he's pretty smart. He's like, I don't think I'm going to fight against you, Leto, because you were sort of a wife of Zeus, and I don't think it's necessarily the case that people who fight against former wives of Zeus do so well, because maybe Zeus has some residual feeling. Maybe he would take out some anger on Hermes. Hermes says, it just doesn't seem like that good of an idea. I don't see a lot of plus side. I do see a lot of downside. And also just something interesting about Apollo not fighting Poseidon is, do recall that it was told to Poseidon by Iris that when you fight a family member who is older than you are, it is the case that the Furies, who do attack people who injure or kill family members, will side with the elder. And so perhaps Apollo had that in his mind to some extent. Maybe Apollo and Hermes are very smart. Perhaps they are very smart precisely because they don't fight. Alright, in any case, while the gods are fighting, remember that Achilleus is still killing. The wave that was trying to destroy him from Xanthos has been dealt with, evaporated away by Hephaestus. He continues to kill. Priam sees that his son is not retreating, and this is a mistake. His men, the Trojans, are dying. His pity overcomes him. He opens the gates. Trojans come in. They are all too willing to, because it is insane out there right now with Achilleus. And so, as they lose, he orders the city open, and well, the thing about opening those city gates is Achilleus is very much out there, and Achilleus might decide to lead a contingent of Myrmidons into your city and kill you and all of you, unless he gets distracted. And so Apollo, just now having intelligently left fighting against Poseidon, takes the form of one of Antenor's young sons, Agenor, and runs away from Achilleus. Achilleus runs after him. He wants to kill him. But Apollo is going to lead Achilleus away from the gates so that Trojans can get into the city, so that Achilleus stops killing everybody. All right, well, that's very important. Now we have to move on to book 22. Get ready to be interested, to maybe laugh a little, but then to be definitely a little bit sad. Book 22. Hector remains outside the gates of Troy. He remains steadfast in the wake of knowing that Achilleus is coming. Achilleus is going to come soon. After he discovers the fact that he has been following Apollo, he is going to turn around. He is going to be furious. He is going to be looking to take vengeance on somebody. The same person that he's looking to take vengeance on for Patroclus' death. And so, double vengeance will be his. While Hector stands outside the gates of Troy, he is implored by both Priam, his father, and his mother Hecuba to return inside the gates of Troy, come back into the gates of Troy. But Hector now seems to be bound by fate. We do know that he is literally bound by fate from Zeus. Recall, Sarpedon will fall to Patroclus, Patroclus will fall to Hector, Hector will fall to Achilleus, and then Troy will fall. You might also understand this moment to be one where Hector understands that you just can't hide forever. He can continue to hide behind the walls. The Trojans can do that too. But at some point they are going to have to fight. At some point they are going to fall. This is the time he chooses to do that. And so he ignores their pleas. And I usually read this bit, but it's just so embarrassing. You might remember that Hecuba actually does something that might be the most embarrassing thing a mom can possibly do to her child. Remember, she actually takes one of her breasts out of her dress and holds it in front of Hector. This is in public, and says, "If I ever gave you nourishment from this, return inside." It's like the most motherly possible plea that a mother can make. She says, "My mother's milk fed you. Don't die right in front of me." And Hector, unfortunately, has to say, "Sorry, Mom, I'm now the champion of the city and a fighter. You were a good mom, but a man's got to do what a man's got to do." In any case, he resolves to stand up against Achilleus, even though clearly he will die. All right. Now that's all very noble and brave. And we're all very impressed by Hector's fortitude. That said, when he actually sees Achilleus, it's a very different moment. He sees Achilleus and he is gripped by fear. And in being gripped by fear, he actually runs away from him. Now, not inside of Troy, but around Troy. And actually, there's a beautiful simile that describes, just as in a dream, you cannot escape something that is running behind you, but ever it stays close on your heels. That's Hector. And then the simile shifts to Achilleus' perspective, where it says, just as in a dream, you run, but can never catch the thing that you are following behind. And so, they stay at this stalemate. Achilleus running, Hector running for 3 laps. But the same problem hits Hector as for why he did not go behind the Trojan wall in the first place. Can you run forever? In this case, no. And nobody, literally speaking, can run forever. We are all physical systems subject to entropy. I believe that's what people that run ultramarathons come to realize. Their body will eventually break down. In any case, Zeus, just as he considered with Sarpedon, considers saving Hector. But who would pop up and, of course, remind him that he had promised not to do that and that fate will not allow it? Of course, it is Hera. Or, excuse me, in this case, it actually happens to be Athena. And she actually convinces him to do opposite from what he expects. Rather than save Hector, she convinces him to allow her to help Achilleus instead, which is quite the opposite. And it's somewhat unclear that Achilleus actually even needs his help, but Athena will help him in two ways. A, she will trick Hector into standing against Achilleus by taking the form of his brother Deiphobus, making him think that he has reinforcements and access to a second spear to fight Achilleus with. And then, after Achilleus throws and misses with his spear, she will actually return it to him. And it's like, wow, everything is on Achilleus' side. Hector is totally super doomed. He's about as doomed as any person has ever been in all of literature. Yeah, well, Hector runs around the city 3 times, then finally decides to stand after Zeus weighs the destinies of both men in scales. This is the second time we've seen this sort of thing happen. Apparently he's got these Libra scales in the sky. We'll actually see Libra scales in the sky during Paradise Lost during the second semester next year. Very similar image. A lot of similarities. John Milton took a lot consciously from the Iliad and the Odyssey, himself being also a competitive epic writer. In any case, Hector's weight in the scale is heavier. That means his death day is upon us. Athena, as I told you, then disguises herself as Hector's brother, Deiphobus. Something interesting about Deiphobus is that after Paris dies, he will be the man that is married to Helen. He will be the man married to Helen when the Achaeans sack Troy. He will be the man that gets punished by the Achaeans for stealing Helen, because Paris will be dead at that point, and he will be terribly disfigured for that. And we will see him in the underworld, in the Iliad, looking terrible. Very, very, very terrible. He'll be missing a face, some ears, some other parts as well. They go mafia on him. In any case, Deiphobus, who is actually Athena in disguise, persuades Hector to stop running so that the two of them may face Achilleus together. Boom! The base hits. Here it comes. Achilleus versus Hector. And this image is, in a way, a lie. Because this image makes it look like this is one of those Hollywood fights that actually goes one way, then the other, and then you think the good guy's actually going to lose. You know, he gets kicked down, he gets knocked down, and then he maybe has some flashback to his reason for fighting in the first place. It's like this one girl, or he was bullied as a kid, or he's got to save America, or whatever, and he's like, yeah, no, I've got the strength now, and he gets up, and all of a sudden the music, starts to rise like, and he's fighting, and then bam, gets a knockout blow. Oh, I win. This fight is nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. This fight is, it'd be like, I don't know. I don't even know how to make a comparison appropriate enough to us. It would be like a small little child fighting against Mike Tyson. So I don't know if you know about Mike Tyson. He's like, the Simpsons make fun of Mike Tyson by having a character whose name I don't recall, who has to fight Homer Simpson at one point, who's obviously not much of an athlete. And he's like, the saddest thing about having to fight this man is that his wife is going to die. And people say, oh, why are you sad about the fact that the wife is going to die after you fight against the husband? And he says, oh, well, no, sorry. He doesn't say he's sad the wife is going to die. He says, I'm very sad that I'm going to make orphans of these children. And the sportscaster in The Simpsons, making fun of a character based on Mike Tyson, says, you know that the man you're going to fight has a wife. And he says, oh, yes, I do know this, but after I kill him in the ring, I imagine she'll die of sadness. And so I always think that's sort of funny. In any case, the idea is that guy is much more of a match than Homer and will clearly kill him. Doesn't happen in The Simpsons. You can watch that episode. It's from one of the many seasons. I think they have over 30 at this point. This fight will be even more one-sided than that one. All right, so Hector stops and addresses Achilleus, and we did this reading yesterday. You wrote about it yesterday. He tries to set terms. He says, please, if anything, Achilleus, if you kill me, or if I somehow, some way kill you, you can take my armor, but just let my body be taken back to Troy so that my parents can give me an appropriate burial. He begs for this. Achilleus, and again, another inhuman moment, utterly refuses this deal. Very famously comparing himself to a man and Hector to a lion. argue me no agreements. There can be no love between us as there is no love between man and lion, or wolves and lambs. In this case, he's the wolf and Hector's the lamb. He's the man and Hector's the lion. He is the thing that kills the other thing. He is the predator. That is the prey. And man is predator of lion in this case, just because a shepherd at this time would have had to fight off lions, supposedly. So even somebody like Paris would have had some experience against, terrible beasts like lions. In any case, humans tend to win that battle. So Achilleus refuses this deal. He will do whatever he wants to Hector's body should he kill him. So Hector better remember every valor now, is explicitly what he says. He attacks. So Achilleus throws his spear. He misses. But then Athena retrieves the spear for him, which I say unfairly and unnecessarily, and gives it back to him. Well, Hector throws his spear at Achilleus, but remember, oh my gosh, Achilleus' shield with the city at war, city at peace, the cosmos on the middle, and the ocean on the sides, some harvesting going on, some dancing, some gods on it. Well, it's a very powerful shield. It has something like 7 folds in it, several of them metal, unlike any other shield that would have been around at that time. Far more powerful, far more sturdy. Hector's spear literally bounces off it. In fact, I think it's described as only going through 2 of the 7 folds. It is very ineffective. He stands 0 chance. After he throws his spear, he then turns to his side, looking for deity Phobos, going to ask him for his spear. Give me a second chance. He turns to his side, and boom, no one is there. No one is there at all. He stood against Achilleus thinking that he had reinforcements. He stood against Achilleus thinking he was making an intelligent decision. Both of those statements have now been rendered untrue. No one is there next to him. This was not a good decision. Achilleus has his spear back. He will throw his spear through the throat of Hector, but without severing the windpipe, so that Hector, like Sarpedon, like Patroclus, like so many heroes we have seen, has a chance to give a death speech before his death rattle. And so he falls. Achilleus kills him, boasts aloud of his intention to mistreat Hector's body. Notice now that Hector is half red, half brown, sadly enough, because, well, what's about to happen to him? And he says he will never, ever ransom Hector's body back to Priam. It will never, ever be buried, even though he will bury the body of Patroclus. And so this is what Hector gets for standing against Patroclus. This is what Hector gets from taking Patroclus from Achilleus. And in fact, after he dies, and recall that he gives a small prophecy right before he dies. That's something that we read yesterday. The Achaeans also crowd around him and start to stab him. He's not as dangerous now. Time to stab him. It's like beating a dead horse. But they do it probably because many of their friends and possibly some of their relatives, brothers, uncles, fathers, have died to him because he is a great champion of Troy. Well, Achilleus then horrifically drags the body, I'll just finish saying this, back to his chariot, loops leather thongs through his ankles, and then drags the body back to his camp. And that is how book 22 horrifically ends.